All right, and again we're back. Day 2 of Cryptoblockcon in Las Vegas, the Mandalay Bay. It's been a great couple of days. We're almost done today, but I'm here with Sterlin Lujan.
Yes, sir.
Of Bitcoin.com. Sterlin, welcome to Smartereum TV.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having me, sir.
Absolutely. This is fun.
Yes, sir.
And tell us about Sterlin.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us about what you do.
Sure. So my name's Sterlin Lujan. I've been in the cryptocurrency ecosystem since about 2013.
Yeah.
Started writing about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Didn't quite put my money where my mouth is. Then in 2015, I found Bitcoin.com through the process of being a libertarian and an anarchist. I was actually working on a Facebook page called The Art of Not Being Governed. I was fully entrenched in meme warfare. We're making anti-government, anti-systemic memes. Anyway, one of my buddies, Jamie Redmond, was on that leadership group on The Art of Not Being Governed. Anyway, he started working for Bitcoin.com when Roger started the company in 2015 as a crypto journalist. He still works there today. Great guy.
Right.
Anyway, Jamie asked me if I'd like to come and work for Bitcoin.com. Before he said it's going to be huge. I said, well, maybe. I think about it. I said, okay, I'll go ahead and join on. So I started as a crypto journalist writing for Bitcoin.com back in 2015, right when Roger started the company. And then I consistently worked part-time up until last year. Let's see, it was last September when I asked Roger personally if I could do more for the company. I want to dedicate my full-time self to this industry and to spreading a message we share in common, and that's a message of freedom, social freedom, economic freedom, personal liberty. And he said, okay, what do you want your job title to be? And then I started out as Communications Ambassador. So since then I've been traveling the world talking about cryptocurrency and talking about freedom. So.
Awesome. Yeah, so we were on a couple of panels at this conference, and a couple of them, or at least one of them, got really interesting. But in terms of where we are at with the crypto markets, the blockchain industry itself, what are your thoughts around that? Obviously, we saw the ups and now the really downs of this market. This is not the first time that we've actually seen this. It happened back in 2014.
Yeah,
probably back in 2011 as well. So, are we at bottom right now? What's happening? Obviously, nobody really knows that for sure. But
in terms of the market, I can't be really certain. If this is the bottom. Whether it's going to go down any further, whether it's going to skyrocket. But personally, I'm not quite as interested in markets, and I've mentioned that sort of directly and indirectly on both of the panels that I was on. Along with my company, I'm interested in mass adoption of the technology, getting the technology into the hands of as many people as possible in order to create a situation where we're banking the unbanked, we're freeing people from the clutches of the state apparatus. So that's what it's all about for me, is getting outside the scope of the nightmare system that we live in. Because that's the purpose of cryptocurrency, right? Cryptocurrency is not just about reaching moon or getting a Lambo. That's great if we can make money along the way. I consider myself an anarcho-capitalist, so starting a business, entrepreneurship, all that's very important to me. But at the end of the day, this technology is about economic sovereignty. It's about providing as much freedom as possible. That's what we're working on at Bitcoin.com, is providing people with the tools to leverage as much freedom as they possibly can. So yeah, in terms of the market, no telling where it'll go, but I'm not really too concerned about it. I've invested in fundamentals, and the fundamentals is, can you use the technology as a way to provide and promote more freedom? So if it goes up, I'm extremely happy. If it stays the same but more people are using it, I'm also extremely happy.
What about the other non-crypto blockchain projects? What do you think of those?
I think that the majority of the non-crypto blockchain projects, like a lot of the ERC20 tokens, a lot of the stuff that's created on top of the Ethereum blockchain, has mostly been garbage. A lot of it's either been companies that have had horrible business models, non-viable business models, and the ones who didn't have bad business models were just outright Ponzi schemes or some type of pyramid schemes looking to scam people, and we've seen that. Now, as we've witnessed this brush fire of ERC20 tokens kind of come to an apex or a climax through the course of this year, we're starting to weed out all of those bad actors. So that's been a really good thing. Now, I want to say this. most of the Ethereum blockchain has only been good for the scam currently. That's been what it's been used most for, it seems like. But I'm not doubting its efficacy into the future. I just don't think a killer application has been determined on the Ethereum blockchain. So I'm still hopeful, but I am going to be skeptical of most of the projects that crop up on the Ethereum blockchain, or when EOS comes into existence, that crop up on its blockchain, or any of the other smart contracting platforms. So we should be wary about that, but we shouldn't also discount it.
Okay. Yeah. So that was kind of because when you start off saying it's a scam and most of them are scams and so on and so forth, which is true, right? But you also ended with, all right, the future. There is hope for the technology, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So that's anyway. So. In terms of our second panel was about the regulations, right? And you've mentioned it a couple of times. You're a crypto-anarchist, capital anarchist, all those terms that you used.
Right.
Obviously, you're not big on regulations and general government regulations and so on and so forth. So it is still going to be a fact, a reality of life for most people.
Sure.
Right? I mean, we still live in mostly government-controlled countries and so on and so forth.
True.
So what do you see as, or what needs to be done, or what can the crypto industry do to kind of work with them while keeping, the ethos of the origins of crypto?
Yeah, Mahesh, that's a really great question, and you're exactly right. The practical reality is that we live in an environment that's dominated by governments, and the language that most people use to communicate control in any kind of environment, especially financial environments, is that of regulation. So for practical realities, it's in the best interest of people to follow along with those regulations. But philosophically, and for the purposes of the future, we should start thinking about how to leverage self-governance techniques, because we have the tools in our ecosystem with blockchain, plus the emerging reputation economy, to either build our own private regulatory systems that work on using the free market, and where the incentive structures are aligned. Because that's one of the problems with regulations. When governments come in and issue regulations, what it does is incentivize those companies to capture that regulation agency. And what I mean by that is that they start getting that agency by funneling it money, giving them special privileges and attention, to basically where they get to write those regulations themselves and stave off competition, which also puts a stranglehold on innovation in any kind of economy. So what we need is economic actors, entrepreneurs, to build reputation-based systems that will allow us to police the bad actors, because bad actors are going to exist in any environment. That's just for sure part of the reality we live in.
Yes.
But we're going to create a lot more worthwhile and less problematic solutions if we're working from a market perspective, because it's all about establishing good quality incentive structures that don't allow for the creation of what's happened honestly in the United States up to now is this system of corporate fascism, where the corporations and governments are working in a form of cronyism, where they basically do what they want, they control people, they dominate over the population, they start wars, they hyperinflate the currency and devalue the dollar, and they do all these ugly things. But so that's what we have to do in this nascent cryptocurrency economy that we're in right now. Since it's so new, we should start talking more about moving into the future without relying as much on government. That means following along the line so you don't get in trouble, but it also means starting to preach these ideas to more people so we can change the dominant paradigm.
So obviously, we know, and this is not just the US but around the world, elected officials, elected governments, elected regulators can be, and that's what you basically are talking about, it can be corrupted, right? So these are elected officials for the most part. Could be, right? May not be all regulators, generally, right? So they do answer to somebody at some point. So if we have these private regulators or self-regulations, so on and so forth, wouldn't it feasibly be easier to corrupt a private regulator versus a government regulator?
Really great question. So absolutely not. It's much more difficult to corrupt the private regulator, and here's why. Private regulators actually do have to answer to somebody, whereas government regulators don't really have to answer to somebody, and I'll explain this. So a private regulator or some kind of defense company or any kind of company that's going to issue regulations is beholden to their customer base. Right? So they have to please what the customers in a market environment want, or those customers will vote with their dollar elsewhere to somebody who will get the job done. This is what I mean by proper incentive structure, is a perfect example of it. Now, when it comes to government regulatory agencies, all they're beholden to basically is themselves or some higher department in the government agencies. And they almost are never held accountable, and the bureaucracy is so entrenched, and because there's so much cooperation and control between the corporations and government. Let me give an example using maybe the police. We've heard a lot of as a government agency.
Right.
Does anybody really believe that the police in the United States are held accountable? We hear about police murdering people on a regular basis and then getting away with it. And you hear the joke oftentimes that, the police, they're investigating themselves.
Yeah.
Are they going to find themselves guilty of any wrongdoing or throw somebody into jail? It hardly ever happens. So the same thing happens with the regulation agencies, except to a lower degree, when they're in charge of basically inspecting themselves for possible wrongdoing and making sure that they control what goes on, and there's no accountability in terms of the funding that's issued into those regulatory bodies, then they're just going to run roughshod over the people. Because that's the thing, those regulatory bodies are funded by taxation, and taxation is coercive theft. They're being forced, people are being forced to pay for those agencies, so there goes all the incentives. They can do whatever they want to because they're going to get paid anyway.
Okay. So when you're talking about using a reputational system of some sort to do this, to do the self-regulation, how would that necessarily work with crypto currencies, let's say, or crypto industry in general?
Sure. Maybe this I can work by giving an example that already exists. So there's a blogging platform in the crypto economy that I've used for a long time, and it's been really great. It's called Steemit.
Yes.
So Steemit is also, it's a delegated proof of stake system. I won't get into the technical details, but it's also has some form of mining that goes along with it. But one of how it works basically is you can write a blog post or put your art up, and then people vote. They upvote your content and give you money. Basically, what happens is they tell the blockchain to delegate you rewards, which is the idea of delegated proof of stake. But also that when the writers write and they talk to people and interact, they get reputation points that improve on the blockchain.
Right.
So the more you're engaging in the community, the more you have a good relationship in the community, and you're writing quality content, your reputation score is increasing. If you start trying to abuse that system in some form or fashion, or you're putting out content that is objectionable in the sense that maybe it's a lie or you stole content from somebody else, something of that nature, well, you're likely to get downvoted and hurt your reputation. So if you hurt your reputation, you're going to effectively be ousted from that system. So I could see us using blockchain platforms or just any other kind of digital platform in order to help police companies that come into the space. They could register with this kind of platform, and they could have a reputation that they could actively work to upkeep, and that people will actually defer to when they decide where they want to invest their money or what blockchain project they want to get involved with. And that's just one example, and I really recommend. There's a person in our industry, in the technology industry, whose focuses a lot on reputation economies, etc. Her name's Rachel Botsman, I believe, and she's written a book called The Consumptive Economy or Collaborative Economy.
Okay.
Really recommend reading that book, but she provides a lot of examples of how this reputation economy is emerging. She looks at things like, another example is Airbnb, right? That's a whole reputation economy. You go to somebody's place, did you treat that place well? Did you rob them? No, good. Oh, you get 5 stars, you get you get lauded by the owner. So just that same practice is applicable to anywhere else on the market. So why not leverage that knowledge base that we have from reputation economies and use it in finance as well?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure we can just keep talking, but I don't know if you have places to go. But this has been a great conversation.
Absolutely.
And thanks for stopping by. And good luck with everything that you're doing.
Mahesh, it was a real pleasure to meet you and to be on a panels with you.
This was fun. So that was Sterlin Lujan. He is Communications Ambassador at Bitcoin.com. And thanks.